relationship, that is a relationship involving trust, between the leaders and the people. Kenyan youths came out to say no and misapplication of their delegated power by MPs. And what did they get in return? Kiburi. Ruto ordered the police to kill, to abduct, to detain, and to torture Kenyans in unknown places without access to their family and advocates. The agent Ruto ordered brutal, violent force on the real principal owners of power, the people of Kenya. Thugs killed Kenyans across the country. We have seen bodies of many Kenyans, young and old, riddled, maimed, and torn beyond repair by guns wielded by Ruto's police. People are writhing in pain and bleeding in our hospitals across the country. We have seen them lob tear gas and live bullets at health workers running to help both civilian citizens and the police wounded in this As I sit here today, sources have confirmed that more than 50 Kenyans have been killed since yesterday for standing up to ask President Ruto's regime to ease the yoke of oppression on their necks, and more than 200 people wounded in the process. We all know that healthcare is beyond the reach of many Kenyans. We know our primary education is run down and broken. Transition to secondary school is in deep confusion. University and college education is now beyond all youth and their parents combined. People can't afford food and basics. There is despair on our land. And yet, after the brutality visited upon Kenyans across the country yesterday and throughout the night, Ruto came out to disrupt the 9 o'clock news with his address to the nation. We did expect, what we did expect of him in his leader capacity were, number 1, to withdraw the Finance Bill 2024. Number 2, to dissolve his incompetent cabinet. Number 3, to form a national dialogue committee to consider the distress of Kenyans. Number 5, to extend an olive branch and lastly, we expected him to resign yesterday with an immediate effect. Instead, Kiburi. The stubbornness a president, but a totalitarian pharaoh right here in Kenya. Tongue-lashing, fire-breathing, and threatening the Kenyan principal sovereign people. We saw Ruto promise us more firepower and an order to deploy the military in civilian and political affairs. By extension, the gazettement of the deployment of our military officers yesterday was illegal and was not constitutional. It was not consistent with the supreme law of the land. And therefore, coming to Parliament today to pass it means that we did not in the first place consider the Parliament's job in doing such a great job. The law does not act retrospectively. And it is very wrong for you to deploy military and then come and pass it later on the floor of the House. We had nothing, completely nothing reconciliatory from Ruto. Instead, he branded Kenyans' liberation seekers as thugs, dangerous criminals, and said their acts of asking their servant leaders to act in accordance with the social contract are treasonous. We want to warn Ruto that is completely out of order. We want to warn the bribe-taking MPs that they are out of order. We want to remind Ruto and his band of arrogant advisors that democracy remains a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It is not a government of Ruto, by Ruto, and for Ruto. Generations have waged war and shed blood, both externally and internally, to defend democracy for many years. President J.F. Kennedy warned in 1962 that those who make peaceful revolutions impossible make violent revolutions inevitable. To the Gen Zs who sparked off these protests, I want to encourage you that our founding fathers waged war against a whole British Empire and won the struggle for independence. The subsequent generation waged war against a single-party dictatorship and won. Your parents and us, your older siblings, waged war for a new constitution and won it. It is now your turn to wage war against economic injustice. And I promise you, you will win this war and birth a new Kenya. As a young leader in this country, I pledge to work and walk alongside you as you wage this war against economic injustice. Young people are capable, when aroused, of bringing down the towers of oppression and raising the banners of freedom. We demand justice for those who were killed by the police since this demonstration started in Nairobi and other counties across the country. We demand that Ruto resigns. We demand justice for those young men and women and any other person who was killed yesterday, and also justice for those who were killed in Githurai last night. We demand that medical costs be met by the government for all those who have been wounded. We demand for compensation to the families that have lost their loved ones and breadwinners. We demand for the release of the economic freedom fighters who have been abducted and held in Comunicado by the government. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless Kenya. Asanteni sana. Is there any question kama kuna swali?
Yes, one question. We've heard that there were exchange of laws in Parliament. Were you in the National Assembly by that time?
Remind the Speaker, Moses Wetangula, that some the opposition leaders are seated, and you better understand the plight of opposition, and therefore moving to dictate laws on the floor of Parliament coming out today to tell us that KDF must be deployed in this country. The police have not complained that they can't handle the situation. And experiencing KDF, the military, are experiencing the same problems we are experiencing. School fee to Babu Owing has the same cost as a KDF officer. The cost of university is the same for everybody. The cost of unga is the same for everybody. And therefore, what pumping knowledge into their empty brains. That the motion passed. Those same members of parliament, were it not for the tunnel yesterday that was constructed just the other day, there would be no more, because of the atrocities that they commit in parliament. Some of us who were supporting wananchi, who voted no, did not have to worry about their lives and safety. But then you saw what happened. When they're in parliament, they yap so loudly. But when they're outside here, you can see what is happening. Thank you.
Well, there has been a question of what was happening, allegations of what has been happening, especially yesterday night in Dubai. I don't know whether you got an opportunity to go to that meeting and know whether Kenyans were
Right now, I'm moving, after this, I'll be moving to Dubai to see how the situation is, because those are our brothers and our sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our relatives, Kenyans. I will move there to go and see how the situation is. It is very much in order for President Ruto to order the killings of Kenyans, and especially those Kenyans who voted for him. In Vidurai, over 80% of the voters in Vidurai voted for Ruto. Why do you punish them by killing them? These are just innocent Kenyans who are just fighting for the high cost of living, who are just against the draconian finance bill, who just want to make both ends meet. These are Kenyans who can't afford 3 meals in a day. Why do you add more expenses to these Kenyans?
Gen Z have planned, or rather had a plan on how they will be dealing with their protests during the week. And tomorrow they had a plan. What is your take on that, considering that now military is taking part of the security?
If military is coming in about tomorrow's protest, as was already organized by the Gen Zs should not be cowed. They should proceed. Military should know their role. They should know to what extent they should move. They cannot kill Kenyans, the same Kenyans that they swore to protect and to preserve their lives. So therefore, the military, from wherever you are, know that these are your relatives, know that these are Kenyans, know that these are people who are suffering the same way you are suffering, know that these are people who are fighting for economic injustice.
In case President William Ruto doesn't attend signature on that bill, comes back to Parliament, do you think there will be a need to proceed with protest?
The moment Ruto fails to append a signature, which I doubt, and which he should do so, he should fail to append the signature, because a finance bill is made to finance a budget that is existing, that is 2024-2025 budget, the financial year 24-25. And that budget is for the wananchi who have said that no on which clauses is not pleased with, and we as Kenyans have already stated clearly that we are not pleased with all the clauses, and it should be suspended, and therefore it won't pass. The moment it doesn't go through, then it is simple. The law does not act in a vacuum. There is the 2023-2024 Finance Act that should take precedence, but I also advise the Gen Zs and Kenyans to revisit that one, because that one is equally bringing high cost of living, and therefore we need to make all the wrongs correct at once without stopping. So I still encourage them, when they finish about that Finance Act, they go to the incompetent and a bunch of miscreant gang in the Kenya Kwanza government, in the cabinet, they should be taken out. Now the power is with the people. Everybody ni raia. Rais awe raia, kila mtu awe wa raia, wajumbe wote wawe raia, wenye nchi are in control.
Question, Mheshimiwa. You talked about the issue that happened this morning on the passage of the motion to deploy the military. What is the normal procedure for such a motion to be passed?
You know, the Constitution is very clear that, number one, it has to come on the floor of the House, right? But the grievous mistake that was done first, that is why this has malice aforethought, is that yesterday, the Cabinet Secretary for Defense, Adan Duale, did issue a gazette notice deploying KDF, deploying military already without the approval of Parliament. Then today they come, there was no proper communication to members of Parliament because we were told that we were supposed to go on a recess for 2 weeks. Then we hear just from our fellow members of Parliament, no proper communication. These are matters that if they are taken to a constitutional court for a judicial review, because this a quasi body that wants to pass a law and procedurally cannot be allowed. So in the first place, what they did yesterday is what is already wrong. So you can't allow, you can't authorize, then you come to Parliament later so that Parliament can approve. That is totally wrong because there is nothing urgent.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
The general public has expressed an interest in recalling some of the leadership, but we know as it is right now, the IBC, the Constitution, they're not even prepared to receive the signature. What is your take on that?
The general public, those are our bosses, those are our people. They've decided that they want to recall some of the MPs, which is constitutionally allowed, and therefore the constitution of IBC can take place within a week. If a presidential election petition takes 2 weeks, what about just interviewing somebody to come and get job, because we already have enough people who are competent based on merits who can do the job that Chebukati messed with. Chebukati, you are the source of the problems that we are experiencing today. So IBC can be constituted within a week, and they can operate, and by elections can be conducted in various constituencies. Because